that Brett. Anytime you get here.
All right, 6:02, and now that Brett's around. 6:02, we'll call a board meeting to order. If you'd all please join me in a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, would you take the roll, please?
Trustee Scherschel. Here. Trustee Ferguson.
Present.
Trustee Mao.
Here.
Trustee Gerger.
Present.
Trustee Detmers. Here. Trustee Charo.
Present.
Village President Kimsey.
Present. Any public announcements this evening?
Yes, sir. Les Morgan with the Chatham VFW Post 4763. Several things. First of all, Veterans Day services on that Veterans Memorial on Thursday, November the 11th at 11. There won't be any speeches or anything. We'll just have a color guard, iron detail, and bugler. And then after that, we'll have the soft opening of the new VFW post right next door to the American Legion. So you're all invited to stop in and look at all the great work they've done there. And then third, we're doing a fundraising to take donations, monetary donations for the Veterans Memorial to be able to light up decorations. And we've got things posted out on Facebook where to mail the check, and hopefully we'll get Vima or what's it, PayPal or Venmo, something like that. So anyway, thank you.
Also, the bricks were installed at the Veterans Memorial Square. They look great.
Yes.
I appreciate all of your work that you did to get that done.
Thank you.
Any public comment on village business? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to put the consent agenda on the table.
Like that motion.
Second.
Trustee Miles, second by Trustee Charo. Any discussion regarding the warrants or the minutes from October 26th or November 1st? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk?
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Ferguson.
Yes.
Trustee Charo.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Scherschel.
Yes.
No old business. First item under new business is a resolution recognizing the achievements of the Glenwood Middle School girls cross country team, the 2021 IESA Class 3A state champions.
Yay.
That resolution reads, whereas the members of the corporate authorities of the Village of Chatham are pleased to congratulate the Glenwood Middle School girls cross country team on the occasion of winning the 2021 IESA Class 3A Middle School State Championship. And whereas on October 16th, 2021, the Glenwood Middle School girls earned Glenwood Middle School their 8th girls cross country state title in the past 15 years. And whereas the team placed 4 all-state runners in the meet, with Aubrey Kinkler placing 23rd, Presley Daly placing 15th, Ali Knudsen, the individual state runner-up, and Ashlyn Chopra, the individual state champion. Whereas the team's undefeated season included victories in sectionals, the East Peoria Invite, the Edwardsville Invite, the Parkside Invite, the Dunlop Invite, the Kingsley Invite, and while also remaining undefeated in their regular season meets schedule. And whereas the hardworking and dedicating members of the Glenwood Middle School girls cross country team are Ashlyn Chopra, Ali Knudsen, Presley Daly, Aubrey Kinkler, Lane Matthew, Ali Broadus, Sophie Rentmeister, Addie Hamrick, Mia Thomas, and Michelle Nessett, coached by Ryan Staley, Lisa Bostrom, and Frank Verinsky. Now therefore be it resolved by the President and Board of Trustees of the Village of Chatham, Sangamon County, Illinois, that we congratulate the members of the Glenwood Middle School girls cross country team on the occasion of again winning the Class 3A IESA State Championship and wish them many more years of continued success. So can I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Scherschel, and everybody has seconded, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations, ladies. do have a copy of this for you all, which I know you're going to go run home and frame and put it. Congratulations to you.
Congratulations.
Nice job, ladies.
Good job. Good job.
Congratulations.
Good job.
Congratulations.
Yep.
Good job.
Congratulations.
Good job.
Here, so,
We're gonna stand up.
you guys stand up. If they get that far, we all just look like we're the same height. We'll then get over here. Mom, Dad, we get them all? All right.
Good job.
Congratulations again.
I'm surprised you didn't tell them I'll challenge them later, Dave.
If anybody is interested in hanging around until the end of the meeting, Matthew Mao has a standing challenge.
good to
that
see you.
Nobody has taken him up on yet.
Good are you?
And he will
Nice
race
job,
you all
Mr.
2
Rinsky.
miles around town to see how.
Nice job, Nice job.
How are you?
All right, how are you doing? Good job.
Good job.
You bet. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Nice job, Mr. Hamrick.
Good job.
So is that all the Hamricks do is win state championships? Is that what?
Trying to get a few more.
It's like a family thing.
Trying to get a few more. Wrestling now, right?
Yes, sir.
Wrestling.
One more.
Yeah. All right. Item number 2, now that we've set the excitement level threshold very high, would be Chad Lucas to present the audit report for the Village of Chatham.
Way to go, Chad.
That's funny.
All right. Thanks for having us again this year. We appreciate the opportunity to work with the village again. I'd like to thank Kayla and Sherry for all their help during the audit process. And as you know, that we ask a lot of questions during the audit, but they're always very gracious and very helpful during the process. So I'll go through this very quickly. And if you have any questions, I know you've had a copy of the electronic copy, but I got 2 documents for you real quick. The independent auditor's report, the comprehensive annual financial report. This includes your basic financial statements, and it also includes an introductory section and a statistical section, which means that your reporting is over and above the basic requirements for financial audit reporting. You submit this to the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement Program, and the introductory section includes the prior year's certificate. In that introductory section, there's a transmittal letter. It's got a lot of background information about the village and some, highlights about the economy and major initiatives. The financial statement section itself, the independent auditor's report is the first couple pages, starting on page 1. Independent auditor's report is an unmodified opinion, which means that based on our audit procedures, we believe that the financial statements are fairly presented. The basic financial statements follow that. Actually, right after that is the management's discussion and analysis, and it's right after the audit opinion. That's where you'll find the information is written by management. It discusses highlights, increases, decreases from the previous year. A lot of good information at a high level, condensed down, and that's where you'll get the most bang for your buck in reading this large document. A couple of pretty graphs in there too. So just overall, in terms of the financial position, in all cases, your governmental activities, your business type activities, general fund, all of your individual funds and your utility funds, including the police pension fund, all had a positive increase this year in terms of the net position and the fund balances. So overall, a good year. Included after that are notes to the financial statements, a lot of detail about your accounting policies, things of that nature. And then after that is, as I mentioned, statistical information. And there's trend information in there, 10 years worth of trend information on revenue capacity, debt capacity, demographic information, things like that. So it's a lot of good information in that statistical section. So that's just a very brief, high overview, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions that they asked Chad?
I appreciate these documents. I think Sherry and now Kayla, that they do an excellent job putting these things together. And so it is actually relatively easy to read through because it's prepared so well. So thank you for that.
And if anybody does have any questions, they can get them to me and I'll pass them on to Chad later date.
Thank you, Pat.
All right. Thank you, Chad. Appreciate it.
The other document is just the auditor's communication to the board and trustees. Really, there's not a lot of significant information in here other than there's some letters, some required letters communicating estimates that we had to evaluate. There were no audit adjustments this year, so that's great. There were a couple of small adjustments that we passed on. They weren't material. Those are listed in here. And then no findings this year. And so really good audit, really clean audit. There's also some future accounting pronouncements that's in this document that may or may not affect the village. We usually include all of them just so you're aware of it.
Thank you, Chad. All right, item 3 is a resolution consenting to the appointment of a chief financial or fiscal officer and treasurer. As many of you know, Sherry, in her never-ending good nature and kind of giving her heart and soul to the village, after 26 years has entered the retirement plan, gracious enough to give us a 3-year notice on when she was going to retire. And in that time, what that allowed us to do was to hire Kayla, and Kayla has been training under Sherry for those 3 years to get to the point where we are today. So Kayla started with the village in October 15th of 2018, and for those 3 years has been trained, I'll call it as Sherry's protege, to fill these duties as Sherry reached retirement. She's a bachelor's and a master's from UIS in accounting, making significant progress toward a certified public finance officer designation. So again, I want to note that we're very grateful that Sherry provided such an extensive notice of her retirement. It's not often that you get that kind of notice and have the opportunity to recruit early and really train and make sure that we have somebody ready to be in that place. It's been a fantastic help to us for our succession plan. So with that, I would like to put the resolution to consent to appointing Kayla to the positions of village treasurer and chief financial officer on the table.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Ferguson has made a motion to approve. Second by Trustee Charo. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk.
Trustee Charo.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Ferguson.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes.
Congratulations, Kayla. You've done good stuff already. We expect more. You've got big little shoes to fill.
No pressure whatsoever. Yeah,
And
none
just
whatsoever.
for future planning, remember that your predecessor gave 3-year notice. So,
Did you pass both those at one time?
yeah, they're all on one.
Is everyone okay with that? Just to make sure.
So
Good luck.
I don't want to have to do it again next
we
week.
passed both resolutions?
That's what
They're
I'm
both
saying.
listed in one resolution.
No.
CFO and treasurer, you mean?
CFO and treasurer.
Right. Those
Right,
are
but
Yeah. Okay.
Ordinance amending the.
No, we're not there yet.
compensation, yeah.
We're not on that one yet.
Okay.
Item 3 is an ordinance amending the village code pertaining to the compensation of the chief fiscal officer and treasurer. So as we were preparing to dot the i's and cross the t's on that 3-year plan, we read back through our ordinances. One of the things that read awkwardly in our ordinance seems to be a leftover remnant of when these were small town appointed positions and somebody might attend to these duties for 2 or 3 hours a month. So it has a awkward reference to the treasurer receives a salary of $500 a month and a chief fiscal officer receive a salary of $29,000. We discussed that with Greg. Greg made the suggestion to just change those slightly to say not less than. That clears up any potential confusion that might arise with that. So that is the purpose of that ordinance. So with that, is there a motion to bring that to the floor?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Charles made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by trustee Mao. Any discussion?
Yes. Firstly, the ordinance as I read it allows the village board to set the salary. And I know that it will be argued that the specific salary isn't mentioned for the CFO, but it is actually on 3153, and the treasurer salary is specified in 3150. Now, this change is probably the most convenient from administrative perspective, but it just leads to confusion when you read it, because now it says the treasurer shall receive no less than 500 per month, and that the CFO is to receive no less than 29,000 per year. But those numbers are significantly different than what I believe is being proposed for Kayla. And not that she's not worth it, but this ordinance remains awkward.
And then one part of the ordinance, it says, shall be limited. Should it not be limited to all but?
Sorry, what?
Let me see your, I'll point it out.
Salary of the treasurer shall be not less than 500 per month. I think that reads okay on that one.
So at the bottom of A,
Oh, he's got ellipsis in there. He didn't include all the.
so the chief fiscal officer's specific duties include BR. Should they be include but not be limited to?
Oh, yeah.
And then we don't tell what the duties are.
The whole thing's not getting changed. That's why he's got those ellipses in there, so he didn't copy the entire.
Okay. But shouldn't that be,
Yeah, we can change the B too, but that's easy.
and I agree with trustee Detmers that it should be more specific.
Or this board should determine the salary. That's how the existing ordinance reads today.
Right.
And it seems like with this edit, that is being taken away, that this board doesn't determine their salary anymore. So,
Previously, we had an instance, so we go back way back to the time when, get the smaller town mentality, when trustees were actually serving as department heads as well. There used to be an ordinance in place that because of that relationship where you actually had direct reports, a trustee had direct reports, one trustee was the director of public works, one was the head of water and so forth.
Well, now that we're a bigger entity, should the treasurer and the CFO be different people so you have internal controls?
Chad and I, since you sat here and stick to this, I think what we tend to see, and Chad, correct me if you're wrong, is this has been actually a debate that's been held at the state level for a decade now, with the conversation on whether to combine the comptroller and the treasurer's office, because so many of those things are duplicative and causes a lot of overlap in what the work was. The actual nature of what they do, the reality is on Kayla's day-to-day basis here as a full-time employee covers all the duties as they're divvied up there, and it doesn't present an internal control issue per se, because we've been able to adopt our controls and set our procedures in a way that mitigates any of those things as you do in a smaller working environment. And the auditor, for the record, is nodding his head yes. So no, it doesn't make sense to separate them. Essentially be reaching out and tapping somebody else that doesn't necessarily have the qualifications of the person we just gave that. So anyway, like I said, you don't have to vote on this tonight. You're perfectly fine. There's no real reason to push it. It's just it read awkwardly. If we have a suggestion in there, wait a minute. If you want to propose something else, or I can call a vote tonight. You guys tell me if you want to pass this as is or table it.
I'm fine.
if nobody else wants to speak, I'll again reiterate that the way that I read the existing ordinance is that the village board determines the salary of the position. Prior to this, I've heard no discussion about what the salary will be for Kayla. I don't know that it's been evaluated against the market and her skills and her tenure. So it's hard for me to vote on a salary I don't know and I haven't evaluated.
Because I don't see it as voting on her salary, it's just changing the wording from this 500 and was it 29,000?
Yeah, later ordinances.
So but basically, this just sets the parameters so that they can't be, no one in the future can be paid under those wages, but the wages are still set anyway.
Yeah, and previously, like I started to explain, sorry, I got sidetracked on this, is because of the relationship that used to be where a trustee was serving as a department head, the board would vote on every non-union salary individually. And 6, 7, 8 years ago, Pat, can you remember? We have an ordinance that actually modified that. The board votes on the salary for the chief of police and the village administrator. All those other ones have been set by the village administrator.
No, I get what you're saying, Mayor, but I also see what Trustee Detmers is articulating with an oversight perspective. When there's been questions, Trustee Gerger brought this up, when there's no separate comptroller, there's not a separate comptroller, and the CFO and treasurer positions are combined. So from an oversight perspective, when you don't have these differing duties, so the board is kind of the acting oversight, so that there might be a safety valve in having the board at least providing that oversight. So I would see that perspective in terms of providing that, so it's not just village administration led, but there is an oversight ability of the board to play that role, and because I think that's the spirit of how it's written as well.
Greg, have you pulled enough out of this to suggest some different language?
Well, I think that if we want to specify a different salary level, then I would need a little more direction. My goal with this was just to ensure that that we were not going to a place where we had somebody in the position and we had an ordinance that set forth certain what that person should make, and she was making a lot more. I'm trying to figure out a way to word both of these provisions in a manner that would allow Kayla to operate as Sherry did, because I think that Sherry, having her in that position, it worked well for the village, at least in my experience. So if we want to leave it as is,
Greg,
we keep the salaries the same, we could do that and then pay Kayla so she would receive essentially three different components to her salary. It would be the $29,000 for being the CFO, the $500 per month for being the village treasurer, and then whatever specified amount the village administration determines for her being the chief accountant of the village. So if we want to do that, that's fine. If we want to change the amounts in here, as Trustee Detmer stated, to be closer to her salary currently, that's fine. We can do it any number of ways. I just didn't want to put the village in a position where we appeared as if we were violating our own ordinances.
Would we have been violating them with Sherry since 2001?
Well, I think that Sherry, in her position, was asked to do more than she certainly was asked to do more than your typical village treasurer. And I think that her chief fiscal officer duties, I think that she had more duties that were beyond the scope of that. In my experience, the village treasurer is a lot of times not a full-time employee. They attend the meeting, They review the accounts, but they don't do the type of high-level work that Sherry performed for the village. The chief fiscal officer is a more robust role, and I should point this out that the village treasurer is set forth in the municipal code. The chief fiscal officer is a creative position in the village of Chatham. Not every municipality is going to have a chief fiscal officer, and so it's a more robust position and official. But when you look at what Sherry was doing, again, and I had the ellipses, I cut out the actual specific duties because I thought that it would have made this ordinance a little cumbersome. But she was doing even more than that. So again, in looking at how we treated Sherry, I don't know that we ever actually broke down her salary into the three different components. But I don't think that we would actually be in violation. What I was hedging against was the appearance that we were paying more than our ordinances for just the village treasurer and chief fiscal officer. So if we do want to keep these, salaries the same, what I would recommend is having a different title for Kayla other than village treasurer and chief fiscal officer. We would need to add some sort of third descriptor that would be her employment with the village outside of her village official roles.
Greg, I was just going to point out, because not everyone may be aware, I know another municipalities, both larger and smaller, those well over 25,000 and those under 1,000, they have individually elected, it's actually an elected treasurer position and then a CFO position within the administration. So I know that's what occurs in some municipalities. I just mentioned that as a note to something you alluded to and what you were saying, and that's how some forms of government do it as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You can have an elected treasurer outside of that would be appointed.
So, as written cleans it up. As amended cleans it up. We can do either. We can work on something completely different.
Does the current ordinance, like Dewey says, does it have us set the salary?
Only as it relates to these specific things.
These parts?
So either way, we're fine. Just we said we had a recommendation here on how to make it a little more apparent. So we have a motion and a second to pass this. Mr. Clerk.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Scherschel.
I'm going to wait.
Trustee Gerger.
Present.
Trustee Ferguson.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
No.
Trustee Charo.
Yes.
3. Oh yeah, Scherschel.
Present.
Yes.
Passes.
Item 4 is an ordinance approving the purchase of a 4x4 truck to use by the water department. We had a miscount on a vote 2 meetings ago. We needed 4 affirmatives, so this is the same truck that Dustin and his department had requested, had been prior approved, and then the vehicle that we had the quote on never arrived and still isn't anticipating to arrive. As we discussed, it's a month ago now. They've located one, have that quote in here. So this would just be reaffirming the vote to get the right count. So can I have a motion to bring this to them?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Miles made a motion. Have a second.
Second.
Discussion.
My only issue with this is we went outside what we're supposed to do procurement wise. So like we just purchased a streets or electric vehicle and they went to the bid buy or they went to the state system to get bids and did. So I still think you could get bids on a truck where we just kind of drove by a lot. They had one available and we're going to buy it. This is a big purchase. And I think we should go along with our procurement rules that we have. While they're not very good, we do have that you need to get bids, and we didn't get bids on this for this purchase. We got bids a long time ago, but those are no longer valid.
They couldn't get delivered on.
Right. It's no longer valid, but you could still get bids because the streets and electric, whoever's truck it was we just voted on, did get bids, and we chose the lowest bidder.
Any further?
I agree. I think we've already bought the truck, though, at this point. It seems like the warrants are on there. So I agree that going forward, we need to make sure that we're bidding things appropriately.
That's later, that warrant's later, and
Yeah.
so it hasn't been approved yet. So is that what item number 6 is?
I agree that it's item number 6. It's just dated October 26th, suggesting that.
That was the one that got pulled.
So have we bought the truck or haven't we?
No, because you haven't approved. It just got pulled off the warrant list.
Okay, just making sure.
That's why it's got that date.
So we haven't bought the truck then.
Mr. Clerk?
Trustee Charo.
Can we have some more discussion on that? Dusty, can you give us a background on the truck? Is that okay?
No, that's fine, because you were absent at this meeting.
Yes, so I'd like to have some background on the truck.
So I think it's approximately a year and a half, 2 years ago, we went out for bid for this truck. Friendly Chevrolet won the bid, and COVID hit, and all the computer chips, which we all know with the trucks, there's no trucks available. So they said it'll be here in 2 weeks. Well, 2 weeks came, it didn't come. Then it was 12 weeks, still didn't have a truck. Then it was a year, and we didn't have a truck. Now it's been a year and a half or 2 years. So what we did is we went, we called all over every Chevy. We went to, there's no state bid right now, we bid by on trucks. It's not been approved by anybody. There's no state bid. And they don't have trucks anyways. So we luckily went by Friendly Chevrolet. They have 2 trucks sitting out front.
Landmark.
No, this, or Landmark, I'm sorry. And so we went in, we asked what the price was. They told us, I said, hey, there's no government bid right now. What is your government price? They knocked off $9,000 off the truck. The other truck sold immediately, and they've held this truck for us for 6 weeks. If we go out for bid, I would bet that we're going to get a truck that's probably more expensive than this one. It's a great price. It has everything that we need for our department. We've been currently pulling our mini excavator with a truck that's not suited for it because we don't have this one ton. And it's really needed for the department. I called the attorney right after we found the truck and said, what's the process I should follow? He said, this is how you do it, and brought it to you guys. So I'm following what our attorney has told me to do.
Dustin?
Did you have anything to add, Greg? He's on the time.
Well, yeah, so this was, it was a model year newer, but given the circumstances, you know, when Dustin approached me and looking at how they did shop around, I thought that it would be okay to bring it to the board. Now that we did err at the meeting when it received 3 votes to pass, it should have had 4 votes. So that's why this is back up in front of you. What I can tell you is the low inventory is not an issue that's unique to the Village of Chatham. All of my clients are dealing with this right now, so much so that I've had cases where it's been over a year where we haven't gotten a truck. I've had a couple communities just approve a not to exceed amount on a purchase of a vehicle and then tell staff to, if you find one and it's under this, you can buy it. I mean, that's the kind of position a lot of places are in. If you need a vehicle right now, you just can't find them. And so when Dustin came to me, I thought we had met our criteria and ticked the boxes for what we needed to do to get this.
Didn't we use bid buy though for the streets truck? I thought that's what we were told.
We did.
For a dump truck?
No, it was for, what was it for?
I thought it was a 1 ton. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if that was a state bid truck.
No, I take that back. We did that for Bobcat.
Police.
For the mini excavator.
Police vehicles.
Okay.
But Shane, I know, told us that he went through a bidding system.
That was,
He
no,
did,
that was
but
the,
it was for the Bobcat or the street department.
Brett, the one
Mini excavator.
you're referencing is the police vehicles.
Right. I thought Shane said he went through that.
Just last meeting.
Yeah, because they bought a truck, right?
No,
Oh, okay.
it was the mini excavator and the
All right.
Bobcat.
Okay.
Dustin, when was,
There was just one more thing.
Sorry.
Greg left one thing out. The night that there was 3 votes yes and 1 vote no, Dave was ready to vote and be number 4. He asked Greg, should I vote? And he says, no, you don't need to. So that would have taken care of it that night. So we did
Yep,
have enough votes.
I messed that one up.
Yeah. So I didn't want to call you out, but that's an important part of the story.
No.
When are you showing up, Greg? Are you on your way?
The other thing
Dustin,
is, one more thing.
yeah, go ahead.
Is we are counting on that truck being in our plow fleet this year.
How many would that make for the plow fleet?
I don't know that
I can
offhand.
count that for you tomorrow. There's a lot.
But
Are the other trucks for the plow fleet in the street department?
No, streets, parks, and water.
Yeah.
So,
But I mean, in terms of,
we have
this
one
is,
tons, we use those
Yeah.
for plowing, or we have some of the 4x4s that a plow can go on the front.
Yeah.
We'll put plows on those and use them in cul-de-sacs and stuff, so.
when was the last time you got a new vehicle in the water department?
probably 3-4 years ago.
Okay.
JD's truck.
What will happen? Is there a vehicle this is replacing?
No, so, we're tending to use a mini excavator now instead of a backhoe to dig water taps. So we
Okay.
have this large trailer and we pull it, but we have to borrow a dump truck to either pull it or to actually put the dirt in the back of it, we have to haul it off. So it's something we've always needed. When we haul around hydrants and things, we have to borrow trucks, 1 tons or whatever, to do that work. And so this is actually something we've always needed. We just now are getting to the point where we can get one. We've replaced some of the other trucks and now this one. So this will be an additional truck to our fleet and kind of change how we do things. I think the next time we won't get a backhoe. So we've kind of transferred into this mini excavator with the trailer and the truck. A lot easier to get in and out of neighborhoods with, and we can transport it without driving on the road like a backhoe. So
It's been in the budget the last 2 years. The board's okayed that to move forward. So.
You answered my other question of what would it be used for, so thank you.
well, if we go out for bid too, the same thing's gonna happen, is somebody's gonna bid it maybe low, and then they're gonna say, we'll get you a truck when we can get it, and it might be another year or 2, and so, I've shopped around, this is an awesome price, I promise you guys that. We've looked every month for 2 years, so it's a great price, it's a great truck, I hope you guys would vote yes for it, so, thank you.
Thanks, Dustin.
Further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk?
Trustee Charo.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Ferguson.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes.
Hey, Greg, that's 6. Is that enough this time?
Why don't you go ahead and vote just to be certain?
Also, yeah, make it 7.
That's a joke.
All right, item 6 is the warrant resolution. This was the warrant for said truck. We pulled it off our warrant list at the last meeting because we needed to clarify the authorization, so motion to the floor.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Chow, second.
I'll second.
Second by trustee Ferguson. No discussion. Mr. Clerk?
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Ferguson.
Yes.
Trustee Charo.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes.
Scheduled meetings is as published. Is there any, we don't have any need for a closed session on the board. Is there any additional public comment regarding any village business? Now's your time. Now's your time, Bonnie.
All right, this came on. Do we have a plow ready for this new truck, or are we gonna have to purchase a plow?
We have it in the budget to buy it.
You have it in the budget to buy
Yeah,
one?
as soon as we get the truck, it's going straight in to get a plow. That's the first thing that's gonna be on the plow, please.
So that is included in the budget of the truck, or?
It's
is it
not in the
separate?
price of the truck, we have it in our budget to buy the plow and have it put on. So
Okay.
it's not gonna be anything separate.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
Trustee Charo made a motion, second.
Second.
Second by trustee Mao, all in favor?
Aye.
Board meeting stands adjourned. Chairman?
Call the committee of the whole meeting to order. 1 second, I'll give you a second for roll call.
Thank you, Chad.
Roll call.
Clerk Holden?
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Ferguson.
Yes.
Trustee Charo.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
I'd entertain a motion to put the consent agenda forward.
Make that motion.
Second.
Motion made by trustee Mao, seconded by trustee Charo.
For public comments.
Yeah, I asked that to be added last. All in favor of consent agenda?
Aye.
Any opposed? Are there any public comments regarding the agenda topics?
Can I make a request?
Sure.
The request is, since I have two board members here from the Police and Fire Commission, I'd like to know if we can move nepotism up to the top of the chart.
Sure.
Have that discussion.
Yep.
That sounds funny.
Yeah.
Let's move nepotism up to the top.
Well, you see where your stance is.
No, we should make them wait. They have nothing else to do.
Sure. Happy to. Yep. There are no items under old business. The first item under new business is number 7, nepotism. I asked that this be added to the committee of the whole, mostly for discussion purposes. As you guys may have recalled, with some recent new hires, there was some question about our nepotism ordinance and what it reads and whether or not the hires were made in accordance with that. I later found out on October 11th that the nepotism ordinance that we were all looking and referencing actually was replaced in 2016, but that ordinance never made it to the codified list of ordinances. So what we were referencing wasn't the active and valid ordinance at the time. I believe the corrected one, again, that was signed in 2016, is going to be soon put on the official.
When we send all of the ordinances and resolutions from this year that need to be codified, any ones that we find along the way, we'll also send those that have not been codified.
Okay, so the reason why I'm bringing this up is because we had some questions about a recent hire and whether or not it followed that ordinance. And then this new version that I'm not sure that you've all seen, it has the same conflict, but there's actually some pieces that were struck out of it that I just think we should all talk about and agree upon, because if not, then we should adjust it before he updates it. So the first clause, really, to make it brief, is saying that the village board would have to put forth a vote to approve all nepotism relationships within the village. That's been struck out in the 2016 version. So at this point, there is no board vote on a nepotism hire. It replaced that generic, we'll just vote on it, with a number of different instances that are allowed and that are not allowed. Many of them are in reference to elected officials, suggesting that our family members cannot be hired on while we're elected, which I think makes sense personally. And then there's another one that says, as when I quit being a trustee tomorrow, could I then become the lead street worker? So there's a clause referencing that there's a kind of a dark period where you need to be off the elected officials, and then you can apply. But regardless, there is a clause, it's 35.93, and it says family members of staff. Members of a staff's member's immediate family or extended family will be considered for employment on the basis of their qualifications. However, immediate family may not be hired if the employment would, number one, create a supervisor or subordinate relationship between family members, or number two, have the potential for creating an adverse impact on work performance, and number three, create either an actual conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest. And personally, a recent hire, I believe, fits that qualification. There was a member of an immediate family hired for, ultimately, the supervisor is related to them immediately. So I understand that there's complications when it comes to police hires, and there's a process that essentially is intended to keep us out of it, to keep the politics out of police hires, and I'm fine with that. But the way that the ordinance reads today, in my opinion, that hire was in violation of that. So if it makes sense for the police commission to overrule our abilities to manage, I think it should be written that way in our ordinance. So I had reached out to Greg, and he offered some suggested language. Again, I'm sorry you don't have all of this, but to cause the least impact, I recommend an addition that would simply state, notwithstanding the foregoing, the Board of the Police Commission shall evaluate candidates in accordance with the state statute and its duly approved test results. So in other words, yes, family members of current employees should not be hired if there's an immediate supervisory relationship, etc., unless it's a police, essentially. And the police board has the ability to hire, even if that situation were to arise. So I'm talking a long time here, but I wanted this to be a discussion about A, nepotism, B, the fact that it wasn't updated on our codified list, and C, how do you want to address the fact that the most recent hire is in conflict with?
I'll say I agree with everything you said. I think if we're not following that way, then it should be updated so that's clear. Because otherwise, the perception is reality is what plays a role in it. It appeared while we were operating of what we understood was the current ordinances, it looked like it was bypassing the board. Whether that was the intent or not, that's how it appears. So it wasn't a completely transparent process to the board in that oversight, and I've used that word a lot lately, but I think it's important to protect the village, and it's a separate line item with, we don't have an HR professional on staff. So in terms of a CYA for the board and the administration, you need those levels. So if, at a minimum, if there's going to be a different function for how those hires are made, that should be transparent and written into how we operate in the ordinance. So I would approve of that
amended language.
Yeah, I mean, unless there's a different idea, but I think that should just be transparent so everyone knows how this is operating.
To be clear then, are you asking for a change in the language of the ordinance for the everyday employee, or a change in the hiring practice of how the police commission goes through their stuff?
I'm not asking for anything at the moment. Except for a discussion amongst the board members. I do want to hear. But Greg's proposal was to add a specific clause that specifically references the police commission, no others. So in other words, if your son wanted to work in the streets department, you would follow the same nepotism understanding that's in the 2016 version that not many of us have seen. So if it didn't create a supervisory, concern, then it would be allowed.
And that's what we've been following. So the question then is the conflict that you referenced. Are you asking for that verbiage to go in an amended 2016 ordinance, or are you asking for that verbiage to be built into the police commission's process when they go through?
Important question, and I appreciate you asking that, because that was one of my concerns when we became known of this, because again, all we had was this older version that said the village board is to vote on nepotism, and we weren't even told that the hire was made. And so as a board member, I felt, well, wait a second, how does this play out? And then I had to become educated on how the police commission actually overrides us, and it doesn't matter really what we have to say. And while I understand that and respect that, I didn't know that at the time. I felt, as though, hey, why didn't we follow this ordinance? because that's why we have ordinances, is to try to control things, and not in a negative way, but just in a way that protects our village.
And those hires don't go across the village manager's desk either. Those are hires done by the police commission in conjunction with the chief. And essentially, all the chief does is sends out the letter offering you the position.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
And
The hiring and firing is done by the police commission.
yeah, and
The chief has really no say so in it either.
no,
Where do the applications go through?
The police commission.
They go straight to the police commission? They don't go through?
Does the commission, do they take into account nepotism? Or is that not even part of the process?
This was never brought to our attention during the whole process, so it was completely blind. Nothing was told to the commission that, hey, John Smith is
Candidate A,
to
right.
XYZ.
Would that have affected your decision? Okay.
sorry, Vern, what'd you say?
Test is the test.
So I
You
think,
thought that was a
I
dumb
think the
question, Chief?
I had
You thought that was a dumb question?
No, I didn't say that.
Oh, I thought.
I had suggested that, again, with the understanding that we have a no nepotism policy, or that the village was to vote on it. My question was, well, should that be a question that the police commission asks an applicant? Hey, are you related? And evidently, I was told that offended members of the police commission, which I surely wasn't looking to offend anyone in asking that question. It was a genuine question that I really meant. Like, hey, if this is going to create a problem, would it make sense to ask the question right at the beginning rather than getting way down the road and then it becoming a problem? But I sincerely apologize to those members of the commission that I may have offended by suggesting that question be asked.
In our thought process, like we said, we didn't know about the police commission's role. I talked to Coach Chief Foley, and he kind of explained their role. So I didn't know, because my first thought was, if we have a situation like we had this year, and the only responding officer is that person, and the only one that can back them up is their relation, and we don't have body cams, and if it's outside the view of the car, do we put ourselves in harm's way liability-wise? But if you guys fully vet this, this is a process that commissions do all over the state. It is what it is. And I really respect, after having that conversation with Chief Foley, what you guys do. And there was no slight meant in any way. But we were looking at the nepotism thing and like, this doesn't fit. Why weren't we told? And then Greg told us, because you don't get told, which is fine. Process is the process.
Which seems weird. We turn around, we tax people, and this board acts over that, but the police is a completely separate thing. It was odd to me when I first heard here.
Greg, do you want to give the layman's version of what the police commission does and why those rules are differently and why they're set that way?
Yeah, so the General Assembly decided that once a village reached a certain size, that the hiring and firing of policing and fire should be a completely blind test, and should be vested in an independent board just to make sure that you were getting the absolute best candidate you could, regardless of who was applying. And so that's why this legislation came down. I'll admit the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners Act is it's brutal to read. It's just a tough statute to deal with. But what it does essentially is it takes away that power from municipalities of the correct size. It takes away that power to regulate their hiring and firing and invests it in an independent board of fire and police commissioners. And now they also have strict regulations on what they can do. I mean, they put forth their testing rules, and they have to do a blind test, and they go over their rules a lot because I attend their meetings, and they try to set up a system where they can evaluate candidates fairly and get the best list that we can, so we can be hiring the best officers.
Yeah, and I think that hiring the best officers is important. Again, I appreciate the work that the commission does to allow that. And I've never met the hires. I have nothing against them in any way, shape, or form. It's just that as a public official, I read that I was to vote on this, and I wasn't even told. So I wish to clarify that. And to answer your question, I'm not going to try to ask that the police commission do anything differently. I asked a genuine, honest question, and that offended people, or so I was told. And I didn't mean for that. That being said, I don't know if anybody else has an opinion, but I would suggest adding the clause that Greg suggested. That way the ordinance says, hey, no nepotism under these circumstances except the police. They have their own process.
That way, when a trustee reads it in the future, they'll be like,
They'll know, they'll be on the same page. Because it makes sense, and just to reiterate that, and I think highly of all of you, so, and it makes sense. So I think it just needs to be clear so that future board members and current board members know what that process is and why that's in place.
Terry and Diane, how many hours of training have you gone through on this? we could start sending you with them.
And I appreciate Trustee Detmer's work on this to get this in line so that going forward, there's no miscommunications that happen. So I appreciate you digging into as much as you did and bringing it in front of us, because it is important that if we make rules, we play by the rules, and there's not any problems later on down the road.
Right.
And in this case, with the
Because it makes it more transparent.
Yeah,
I think it is important to stress that any rule that the board tries to make is superseded by state law.
Right.
And that was intentional in the General Assembly's setup of these things for the particular reasons where the view at that point in time was take any politics out of hiring in police and firefighters.
Greg, I know you have a deadline here. Could you possibly create, if you guys all agree, could you please create an ordinance that is similar to the 2016 version but has that amended language in it?
Yeah, I can, and I can have that ready to go for the next meeting. So do you want it identical to the 2016 ordinance, but with that caveat language, or is there anything else that you'd like to change?
To me, it made sense.
That you'd like to see in this new ordinance that would change anything else in the 2016 ordinance.
Thank you. To me, it made sense, but if I may, I'm going to send that to the rest of this board, and because again, they might not have seen it since it wasn't on the codified. So if you could just give them until Friday close of business to provide their feedback to you, then I think at that point you could try to incorporate any other suggestions that the board may have had.
That would be perfect.
Okay, so I'll email it
Me
to
by
the board
Friday, and
tonight.
I'll have something for you to look at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. And board members, I appreciate you looking at that and getting back to Greg if you have concerns.
Thanks for taking the time to be here tonight.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Number one under new business is the CMT Engineering Updates.
It appears that Jim is not at the meeting tonight, so I know the big item was Oak Brook Avenue, and I drove near that area. I didn't go down it yet today because I wasn't sure if it was still blocked off, but I think all the work is done on that, or pretty close to. They probably got some still have some cleaning up to do, but when I put out you guys' report for this next month, I'll give you a full report on that, on what the status of it is. But
Thank you. I think it went a little bit longer than, I remember him telling us it should be 2 weeks. I think it went a little bit longer than that. So I think we'd sent an email out to the residents, and hopefully we could send one out just clarifying that the work is done and that they can go and park their cars on the street again or however they want.
The couple days that I went down there, those guys did a really good job of working with the residents to allow them to still be able to pull in and out of their driveway on the side that was still left open. So they did most of the work with one lane open. It worked out pretty well.
Do any board members have any requests for Jim that Pat can reference and he can get back to us on? You good? All right, awesome. Number 2 is a property tax levy information timeline. I don't know if you want me to read this text that was in here, but I haven't been informed about this at all.
We have to do a property tax levy every year around the 1st of December. We attached a timeline and a note from Kayla. She put that together, and that's the steps that we'll take and what meetings we'll have it and have the public hearings. So
I think
that's just more informational for you.
Meredith is the only one new to this process. The way that this works is each year when it comes to approaching our levy, with 2 components we take into effect. One is the actuarial report on our police pension fund, which you are familiar with. And then Kayla looks through the growth of the village and gets a tentative assessed value for the total property value within the village and tries to account for any new growth that we've had in the current year. So there's a figure that is submitted to the assessor's office that is our tentative levy. At any point in time when that dollar amount of that tentative levy is in excess of 5% of the previous year, more than 105% of the previous year, so 5 points up. It does cause us to, in the spot to follow procedures, we will issue a public notice, we'll do a public hearing on the tax levy. And I give this caution to everybody every single year is even though you're going to see a notice in the newspaper that says the total levy in the village is going to increase by, I missed the number, 12%. What that is doing is that's our estimate and that's the capturing of all the new construction within the village. This is the total dollar amount that the village levies. That doesn't mean that your individual property tax bill is going up by 12%. This is a total dollar amount. It captures that new growth. The assessor's office and all those that have been involved from different entities that run through the total tax levy process, review all the levies, they'll set the final rates, they'll set the final bills. That's the point where the actual assessor's office, who I've always viewed as probably the greatest impact on what your tax bill is because the assessor's office is the one that determines what value of your home is going to be multiplied by the rate. So Kayla's projection has, currently has the per $100 of assessed value to be the same exact rate as what it was last year. And that final number will be set through assessment and board of review process.
But other entities can change.
They do. If you look at the details on your property tax bill, there's 12 or 13 overlapping agencies and different lines that are on the details of your property tax bill. The village is actually one of the smallest amounts that you see on there.
I think you'll find the village of Chatham is one of the most efficient on that list in terms of all the areas from public safety to infrastructure on down the list.
It is alarming. It's always alarming when you see the thing, because if you're not following this or if you haven't done it, that big heavy black bar notice as it's required in the paper makes everybody think, oh my God, my real estate tax bill is going up 12%. That's not.
Hey, Village President Kimsey, I know there's a picture of a dollar bill that's broken down into pieces. Do we still have that on our website?
We do. It's in there. It's pretty close if you wanted to slide based on what everybody else has done. But essentially it works out to this fact that on your total tax bill, about 6% of it goes to the village.
Just to show people, hey, we're not the big money gobbler you think we are, but
we sound like the old 49ers. They are who we thought they are.
Item 3 in new business is a village manager update.
I have got a lot of stuff for you this evening. Okay. First off, updates to the personnel manual. I talked to our staff. It's been 6 months, going on 9 months since they were dropped from the operators union. And we've been operating off the personal manual ever since then. But there's a few items that I have highlighted on the online copy of it. And essentially it's 3 pages. It's pages 23, 24, and 25. And I can go over those with you now. Before, our work week was considered 40 hours a week, which makes it hard when you have guys that work overtime. They come in, they work 8 hours that day, they have a water main break, I need them to stay for 4 more. They turn around and stay for 4 hours. They get paid for those extra 4. But the way the verbiage was there, if they hit 40 hours on Wednesday at noon and we didn't think we needed them, we could send them home for the rest of the week and they'd get no overtime. But of course, the next time I had a water main break, I'd have nobody out there fixing it. So we needed to change it so that it shows that it's a 7-day work week and the days are 8 hours long. Work period within a 24-hour work day. So that matches more with what was in the union contract. Okay. Next page. When it was talking about the department heads, they left our general foreman's half of their duties off of there. So it's electric/streets for general foreman, water/parks general foreman. Administrative assistant is the head of the utility office department and reports as necessary as well. So in the previous, with Sherry was over, she was the chief fiscal officer and also the head of the utility department. Those duties have been shifted over to Jill, and Jill oversees the 4 girls in the utility office. And Kayla continues as the CFO and treasurer. We needed to clarify a temporary lead person. That does not show up in our personnel manual, but you know, we have guys that have worked here a long time. They get vacation time, they get personal time, they get comp time. If they take off for 2 or 3 days, I need somebody to step up and lead that department during that time. In the past, they had a temporary lead worker position. They gave that person an extra $1 for each hour that they acted in that position. I'm proposing that we change that to $2 so that people take it a little bit more seriously. And the last...
That's another provision that was in the operator contract.
It was, but it was in there at $1. Okay. And the next thing is on overtime. Kind of to stress again, work in excess of 40 hours per week will be paid at a rate of 1.5 times the employee's regular pay. I changed that from 40 hours per week to 8 hours per day. Overtime rate for Sundays and holidays will be at a rate of 2 times the employee's regular pay. And I forgot to add in there about Saturdays. Saturdays overtime would be at 1.5 times the employee's regular pay. So I've got that written in a note off to the side, and I'll add that in there.
Do employees have to have pre-approval to work overtime?
They do. They're general foreman or myself.
That's generally on an emergency call out, a snow plow needs, water main breaks. We're talking about the former operators.
In emergency situations, we'll let the lead worker make a call on that sometimes. If he gets called out first and he sees that it's a water main break, he comes back in, he notifies Dustin, but he calls the rest of the crew in. Same thing if we have a major electric outage, or if the guy that's on call can't handle that by himself, he goes down the seniority list and calls the next guy in to be able to come out and help him. Same with the streets. A lot of times, a large deer gets hit, police call for them to come pick it up. Guy can't lift it by himself, we'll call in another person to come in and help him. You have questions, Brett?
No, it's good.
So those are the changes that I'm proposing. I will prepare this. You know, we updated this back on September the 28th, and I will prepare this as if we're going to accept these the next meeting, if that's all right with everyone.
And this is, we still don't have a union for the one set of workers, right?
No.
Yeah, this takes a lot of the
Kind of makes it all.
traditional language that would have appeared there. It works it into that.
And I worked with two of the guys from the street department to come up with some of these ideas. They gave me a sheet. There was a few of them that they asked for that I was like, we don't want to go there, or at least not right now. But they were happy with this, and I think as we go forward, I haven't heard any complaints. I haven't had any complaints. Dustin, you? Next item is property liability insurance, workers' compensation insurance. It's due the 1st of December. And I have some proposals or quotes or proposals from Alliant.
Woo.
I know. There's a, this one's yours, Brett.
Yeah.
You know how to save costs right now.
I had a couple more printed. No, I think we're added paper for you in there.
That's all right, Pat.
But
That's all right.
there's a management page, which one it is. It essentially explains why the price went up just a little bit.
Cyber.
Did you hear, Pat, about the management page?
Yeah. It's waiting for this page. I'm gonna tell them what page it is.
Executive summary, it is, of course, it doesn't have a page number on it.
Do we do dual factor authentication?
We did. We just switched to it.
Yeah.
It's kind of slick. It's a thing called Duo.
Yep.
So you keep it on your phone, and
It's about the only way you can get cyber.
yeah, it's page 6. But that kind of explains the increases. Thank you. A good portion of it is we had their company come down and estimate the value of all of our equipment, buildings, water towers. And the thing that we found was that they had our substations way below what the value of them were. So I got a hold of IMEA, and they sent one of their engineers down and looked at it and come up with an estimated replacement cost. And we put that and submitted it to them. Some of those things, along with the cyber security, bumped the thing up a little bit. We went to bid last year. We went out for bids. They were low. And then we just got a quote this year because I think we were kind of following Brett's pattern of once every 3 years, go out and get bids.
Cyber's a big deal right now.
It is. We filled out that application, I think, 4 times.
The smallest increase I've seen is 65%.
Hurry up and sign this, would you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just kidding.
The cyber portion.
So I'll prepare, if that's all right with you, prepare an ordinance for passage on that at the next meeting. That gets us in line with getting the renewal done in time.
Captain Insurance, you're
Yeah.
good at that, right?
Yeah.
That's a fun name.
You got floods.
And then the last one is if Dan can help me a little bit here. It's an update on Breckward Estates Plat 9. Okay. It's kind of a saga. It's gone along. We started out on August the 19th. The Planning Commission met. We reviewed a preliminary plan. Yeah, it's that one there. We reviewed a preliminary plan with that configuration of street. One in, 2 cul-de-sacs. not our favorite. But to be able to do that, he wanted a side yard variance and a front yard variance. So the planning commission was okay with the layout and plan. They gave the okay. Then on September the 16th, his engineers and attorneys went in front of the zoning board of appeals and asked for the zoning change to change that from B1 to R2. So he could put duplex condos there. And instead of the side yard, he asked for the side yard variant and the front yard variant. The zoning board gave a yes on the zoning change, but a no on both of the variances. Then,
Sorry, can I pause you there?
Sure.
Did the zoning board of appeals present their findings to us in the normal form?
they will. We don't have those yet. Ryan's trying to pull those together, and that's why I'm just kind of giving you a synopsis of what's the steps that this thing's gone through, because there's been at least 4 meetings on this.
Oh, yeah.
So we go back to the planning commission on October the 21st, and that was when they presented a different layout plan. So that's the one that you see up there now, where the road comes in, goes all the way around. Easier for us to plow, easier for us to take care of. Street department was happy with that. Planning commissions had no problems. It met all the requirements from our engineer and everything. So once again, the planning commission okayed that plan. Then Al Young's attorney and engineers asked for a zoning change to change the rear yard
Variance.
from 25 feet to 20 feet. He asked for a variance to change the rear yard from a 25-foot backyard to just a 20-foot backyard. And that would give him 5 feet. And with that 5 feet that he's going to accumulate, he would, the 10-foot strip where we're having problems with the fence, he would give that property to the people to the south. That's his plan. At the zoning board of appeals, they voted, and they had 6 members, and it was a 3-3 tie. The motion was to pass it, and 3 votes yes, 3 votes no. So that's kind of where we're at on that.
And on that commission, the chairman does not break a tie, correct? We talked about that
The
today.
chairman is a voting member. He votes. He doesn't break ties. He just votes. Same as on the planning commission. Those commissions don't have tiebreakers. So it was.
Because there's only 6.
There's a member absent.
There was a member absent, yeah.
So you had an even number.
So Mr. Young asked me to ask you guys, are you interested in giving him a rear yard variance so that he can come up with the latest plan and put some high-end duplex condos there?
I know I've heard from some residents that they're not excited, they're not supportive of the zoning change.
Right. I've heard actually from business owners that wish for us to stop rezoning from B to R because there's not a lot of B available to build out, and that's a prime location for B. So
now, is that it? Just could you pass that name on to Mr. Young, because he's had that thing for sale for over 20
Long
years.
time, yeah.
sure.
The thing is, they had a public hearing that night where they asked for the zoning change. There was probably 6 people in the room that were residents there. They were all in favor of the zoning change.
But not the variance.
Well, they never even said anything about the variance. The staff were the ones that pointed out the variance. We did not want buildings that close together. If one caught on fire, the other one would almost have to catch on fire. They were so close. So we asked for them to deny the side yard variances and also the front yard variance, because when you run into duplexes and condos, if you have 2 houses here, say 3 people live in each, so you got 3 cars, maybe each, all right? If you got 2 in the driveway, now you got 2 on the street.
Right.
Sooner or later, that street fills up.
Right.
If you shorten the front yards, you may not be able to get 2 cars behind each other. And that was what we were worried about. So we said, no, leave the front yards where they're at. But no one ever complains if they have a little bit smaller backyard. And a lot of times if you're buying a duplex, you're not looking for a lot to maintain and take care of. So that's why we thought, well, there's nothing wrong with a backyard variance. It doesn't hurt us. There's usually no utilities in the backyard anymore. Small little drainage ditch that will be in the middle of all of them.
Sorry, did you say that we asked them to deny the variance, or to clarify, did you say that your preference would be to deny the variance?
We told them that the staff did not recommend issuing that variance.
Thank you.
No, we don't tell them to deny. That's up to them to vote.
Yeah, I don't want to tell the commissions to do anything aside from to evaluate.
But Mr. Young was asking if he is going to have a chance to proceed with this development that would put 20 duplexes there. That's 20 lots, so that it would be a total of 40 duplexes that he said should range between 275 and 325. That's at least 20 new residents into the community. That's increasing the property value of the taxes that come to the village and the school district and every other district for that piece of farmland that it's probably less than $600 for that piece. And then plus if at least 40 new people move into the community.
Which elementary district is Breckenridge?
I think that's gonna be Glenwood Elementary.
Glenwood Elementary. So,
And I don't know.
I mean, that could, I mean, that one's pretty full. So, I mean, there would be an impact in terms of how they're going to have to shift those lines. Yeah, and they haven't had to, but that could be just a possible impact.
And there will be probably a few kids living there,
Right.
but it also could be more in the way of grandma and grandpa's moving to town.
It'll be all.
Yeah. So it is a major impact to our economy here because, I mean, just think of the numbers, just the property taxes, the money that you would get from the census, the utility customers,
The school.
utilities. We don't have to hardly do anything there for utilities because it's completely surrounded.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, the businesses in the community that buy gas, go to the grocery store, buy donuts, coffee, all of those different items.
What kind of impact will that have, that development of that corner and frontage there, to the traffic patterns on Park, on Walnut, and Park further down? Have we looked into that yet?
We haven't, but that's something that our engineers, when they start to get into that phase of it.
Yeah, because we know that's already a bad intersection, but we've, talked about, what we want to do with it,
But those folks there could go either direction. They could go to Gordon to go out, or they could go to Park Street to go out. Or if they're going to go out and do a right-hand turn, they probably go out and just go straight out back Breckenridge.
To Trustee's Mal's question, and that's a good question. With that traffic along Walnut, with adding those resident lots with the easement there, does that allow to expand Walnut to put in that middle lane, or would that?
That property, when that got platted, he gave us the additional right of way. So you see the sidewalks that are out there.
Right.
We'd be able to put curb and gutter there and the sidewalks would stay essentially in the same place.
So,
Yeah.
I got to take off for a hearing with the judge here. So I need to get off the call.
The attorney's not in trouble.
Thanks for spending your dinner time with us then.
Yeah, no problem. I'm not sure how long this will take, but if something comes up, shoot me an email and I'll have that up and I'll try to respond respectfully to the judge.
I think we'll be done in 15, 20 minutes.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So right now with the space we have with the right-of-ways, is there enough, how much space do we have to make it 3 lanes so you'd have a middle lane? what's allowed for in terms of the space we have?
You know, I'm not sure. I want to think that it's 80 foot from center line over to the right of way on both sides there. So that's a total of 160 feet. That's a pretty good size right of way. And we do that in a lot of different areas when, like out on Mansion Road, you know, you notice that those yards and those fences are back quite a ways.
Right.
Well, we project Mansion Road sometime in the future to be more than 3 lanes wide.
Right.
We think it could be 4 to 5 lanes wide, and that's why we've asked for, I think it's 100 foot on each side there.
And how much did you say is on Walnut?
I think it's 80. I don't know that for a fact. I'll check. I'll shoot you an email. But
I'm just to think ahead in terms of.
No, we've thought about it because we were contemplating widening that area. And if you go down and look down there by the church and then also there by the gas station,
yeah,
that's out to 3 lanes wide already there. So I think when Glendale, that subdivision, and I think even the farm property across the street, when we did some ditch work and put some pipe in there, I think they gave us some right of way. Yeah. So I think we're in pretty decent shape for that. So I need, you're not voting tonight, but I need to know whether he has a chance to get the rear yard variance. It doesn't need to go back to the Zoning Board of Appeals. They voted. They did their job. They didn't, and hopefully if by the next time, if we put something together, and it won't be, I don't think even at the next meeting, but if we put something together for you guys to accept, you should have the results and the findings from those zoning. But when I talked to Ryan, he said they didn't really give an excuse why they voted no on the rear yard setback.
But we know the people and their votes, right? Because I'm going to reach out to them just as I did for Ravina. So I can find that in the minutes, right, as to who voted how on the variance.
You haven't put the minutes together for the last one, right?
Yeah, there should be.
Is it on there? Okay.
All right.
And you said staff is not, there's no issues with the rear yard variance, right?
There isn't. If we had utilities back there, it'd be different.
Yeah.
We put all the utilities out front now, and almost all the other companies do.
So just to be clear, I haven't done enough research on this, so I'm not going to respond either way as to whether or not I would accept it. But obviously, the other board members can weigh in. I would ask Mayor Kimsey if you could point out to me where in the comprehensive plan did we suggest or hope or wish what this land might be used for in the comprehensive plan? Like say, hey, we would love to see a Wendy's there, or we would love to see a park or a sewing facility.
Actually, sewing facility was the number one request.
Sneaker shop.
No, and the reason that a comp plan doesn't do that is the comp plan takes all your existing zoning. That's that. So a comprehensive plan doesn't change zoning and it doesn't assign zoning. And it contemplates a potential land uses in areas that kind of bubble around here. But this is a reflection of what the current zoning is on all those parcels that already have established zoning. So unilaterally, the village, you know, by a board or through a comprehensive planning process, they cannot change a signed zoning process. That takes the actual owner of the land making the request for the change.
So in the comprehensive plan, it would be zoned as business, but is represented agriculture.
No, it'll show as the current zoning.
This is Walnut, right?
E1, right?
Got to be Walnut and
Oh, that's
agriculture.
land use versus zoning. Two different things.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so
It's
yeah.
currently being used as agriculture. It has zoning on a B zoning district on it. So
If it wasn't already annexed into the village, like the piece across the street, Dewey, that piece across the street shows it as ag, and it probably has it as potential for a combination of residential and business. Business up front along there and residential in the back. But right now, since it's not actually in the village limits, it hasn't been given a zoning other than P1.
It's the zoning bullet.
That's right, business in the front, party in the back, that's right.
All right, so I don't know if any of you guys want to weigh in on Pat's question or not.
So as you think through this, I do think the other thing that is appropriate to keep in mind here is there's this conflict with the houses that sit on the south side of where this development would be. And Mr. Young has made provision to accommodate for some of that space that was not necessarily theirs.
So if I could understand it right, isn't it that there was a fence built on someone else's land?
No, the fence was built on his land. The thing is he built, instead of putting it on the property line, he built it 10 to 11 feet inside of his property line. So if you owned it here, and this was your property over here, he put his fence over here. So for 20-some years, the folks that lived on the other side of the fence maintained it,
Thought that was
planted
their
it,
yard.
put stuff there, thought it was their yard, but the whole time it was his.
His being the Young?
Yes. And when he first said that, well, I'm going to come in and I need that to develop, and I said, don't bring that to our planning commission and our zoning until you get your land problem resolved with your neighbors.
So what happened, how was that resolved?
That's, if you
He
look
is
here,
in the process of giving, the plan is to give each of those landowners there the piece that's behind their house up to the fence.
That's what this is.
The stuff that they were maintaining,
Yes.
he's going to gift it to them or sell it?
That's what he told me.
And the,
So he's
He didn't
taking
say
it,
sell it.
You can sort of kind of see it on.
so he's basically taking it away from the new plots
This-
to give it to the current.
and the caveat,
He's not taking anything away from them because there's nothing there.
They don't exist yet. I'm just, the future resident, yeah, it's like,
Future resident gets the missed
But
lots.
this piece from here to here, he proposes giving that piece to this one,
yeah.
here to here.
and the caveat, from
some
what I
of
understand.
the 5 feet that he's asking for in the backyard is,
The caveat I understand is that they cannot oppose anything he requests to do in there, is what he's told the residents.
He cannot oppose.
They can't oppose anything, they can't come to us and say, we don't want this.
I
Is what,
haven't heard that.
yeah,
then that wouldn't be a,
right, it doesn't matter.
We're not party
No,
to that.
no, we are not party to that.
The thing that we need to insist for both sides along there is either everybody's in or nobody's in. Because the county does not want, when they go to plat this, they don't want this one to be in this lot, and then this one to be just stepped out here by itself, and this one to be in.
That would have to be like spot zoning, or not spot zoning, but that,
Yes.
that's got it. That wouldn't be spot zoning, it's like spot variance. you
No,
know
but
what
it
I mean?
creates spike strips,
Yeah,
and then nobody wants to take care of it, and they're like, well, it's not mine.
yeah.
And the people on the other side, they have the duplexes, well, it's not mine.
Right.
And then they're calling the village, Ryan, what do we do?
Yeah,
And
you got lawsuits.
the thing is even giving it to them costs money. Because you have to take it down to the county, you have to get an engineer to plat it, include it, and then record it. What that price is, I don't know. Whether Al Young is offering to cover that expense, I don't know. That's where we're at.
Well, thanks for going over all
Yeah.
that, Pat.
Yeah,
That
I
really
mean,
helped.
that gives you an idea
Yeah,
of all the steps that we've gone through
Yeah,
on this.
that's,
We'll still get you all the information on the reports of the zoning. And the reason I didn't bring you the location sketch map yet for you guys to vote on is because if he doesn't get his variance, he may just say, forget it, leave it the way that it is and leave it as B1. If somebody wants to buy it, now we're back to, well, I'm going to come in and knock this fence down because I bought all the way over here. So
But that's,
you guys kind of play a part in helping them with the solution. It's just how much you want to play in that part.
Any other questions for Pat with reference to this item? Pat, did you have anything else under your update?
No, that's it.
I have one question. Anything going on at the water plant, or are we all good on that?
We have not had much in the way of complaints, which is surprising because we're doing flushing all over town. And I thought for sure we'd get a few calls that we got brown water or tastes funny or anything like that, but it hasn't reached my desk or Dustin's, I don't think, has it?
We had a few that we stirred up when we were flushing, but nothing major. That's common, it happens every time.
I got a question for my husband about that. I was able to answer it.
Our water's great, shut up, right?
Item number
Why is our
4.
water brown? Sorry.
Hold on, Dewey,
Sorry.
on the insurance thing, if everybody's okay, I'll look at this more thoroughly, but there's a couple things, Pat. They have us down for either a $25,000 deductible or $2,500. I would imagine it's $2,500 for the law enforcement. They just added.
Oh, they added an extra zero, didn't they?
And then,
That's Dewey's job, just to check the type. I haven't seen it.
and then our excess liability coverage is claims made, which typically you want occurrence, and then our cyber may be with a non-admitted carrier. So let me look into that.
All right.
And then I'll get you some stuff for questions.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brett.
Yeah.
Captain Insurance.
Item number 4 under new business is the Public Properties and Recreation Committee discussion. Unfortunately, there was a meeting last night, but I was unable to attend. I had a conflict, but Trustee Gerger went on my behalf.
I was there. So, they discussed, one item was they discussed the renaming of West Side Park. They are going to look into it and then make suggestions to us. They talked about maybe doing a community contest, so to speak. Actually, the best name I heard come out was from Rollo, and he just said it, by the way, it was Sunset Park, because it's West Side and the sunset's over there. It's kind of nice. But they're going to discuss it further and research it. I did not know that that's Buckingham Estates over there, so they talked about Buckingham Park, something like that. But they're going to discuss it and send it our way. Yeah.
We need some.
And then they also discussed the decorations and decorating where the military banners are on the square.
Say the words.
We are going to get a tree, some kind of aspen tree, Norwegian, because the
Pick the tree out.
yeah, because they
Have a
had
tree.
the ones we have are Austrian, and I don't
Yes.
want to disparage the Austrians, but they say
Yes.
they only live so long,
30 years.
and so they're going to decorate that tree on the square and then replant it where one of the Austrians are dying, hopefully.
Yes, that's the plan. But
That's
I
what
will
they-
tell you, we're starting off small.
I saw a picture of it, it looks like Snoopy's tree.
It is not Snoopy's tree,
Charlie
but
Brown.
it's the ideal that we're going to plant the tree there, and we're going to start the new tradition of lighting up the tree every year. So hopefully this tree will be there for 100 years, so our grandkids will be able to light up the tree. So we have to bear that in mind, because the trees, like I said, is not equivalent to what they have at Rockefeller Center.
I want to take one strand of lights, or how many?
That's yet to be determined.
We can get fairy lights.
I cannot reach the
There's a
top
long
of it.
way.
I cannot reach the top of it. But I would like to thank Rollo for going out with me on
Yep.
Friday and learning a lot about trees.
Appreciate all your efforts to make this happen. I know it's just something that's important to you, and you've been busting your butt to make it happen, so thank you.
We're gonna have trees.
Keep it up, keep it up.
So then we discussed the grant, and Dustin said there's been, like with everything, you can't get a response. The person's on medical leave or some kind of leave, so we're waiting, and so stuff probably won't start until spring, but as soon as they get the money, they'll put motions in work.
I just got a response today that
Oh.
there's still more in the process, there's a couple more steps before it gets to the director's desk and then comes to us. So, they're still working through the process.
So we're still on the right track for that, which is good.
Directionally correct.
Directionally correct
That's what my uncle would say.
in the bureaucracy. So they talked about that. The last thing was the dog park, and seeds in, fences in, signs are ordered. Looks good, but they don't want to open too soon because Springfield did and their grass was gone. So they're looking at a launch in the spring. If they rename the park, they'll do, they can adjust things, but it should open in the spring if anybody asks. They want the grass to get well established before doing anything and get the signs up. But it sounds like it's on the right track as well.
Yep, and also Dustin and I have been working on some ninja proposals for those people that are vandalizing that park. We will catch you. So heads up. Be aware.
Dewey will hunt you down.
I will get you. So that was it for the Public Properties Commission, the Utility Oversight Committee discussion.
We didn't meet. We'll meet next month, and then we'll have stuff to discuss.
Awesome. Item number 6 under new business, the final item for those of you patiently waiting in the back, is HR professional. I think you all heard me talk about this 6 ways from Sunday. I've done my best to illustrate the need for an HR professional at the village, and I'm going to continue to advocate for that. I can go through a list of particular tasks that I find lacking or that need supplements. But I'm looking at this point, unfortunately Greg's off, but I'm looking for what latitude do we have as a board to ensure that an HR professional is hired quickly for this village. So what legal steps can the trustees make to ensure that an HR professional is hired? And I think that we've talked through many items before about the need. I can again go into great detail as I'm prepared to do so. So is there any discussion amongst the board about your belief on the need for an HR position?
I look back when Jill was the administrative assistant and the HR person. The board at that time created an ordinance and split those 2 positions apart. And at that time, they wrote that the HR person could be handled as a person or hire a company to do that. And at that time, the board chose to hire Sorley as their HR person. Okay? So they have been acting as our HR person since that ordinance is passed. Now, I have not got any complaints on our HR stuff at all from any employees. I think Sorley is doing a decent job at that. They help me when we do have grievances or have to deal with discipline. They also assist when it comes to negotiating our union contracts. So I also looked at it to see that if that HR position that you're talking about is to be created, it starts with the mayor and with the board's agreement to put that position in place. Then if that happens, then it comes to me and then I start doing interviews for that position. But I think you guys need to decide whether it's going to be a company or whether it's going to be an individual person.
Pat, beside the discipline aspect of an HR role, so if a colleague has an HR question, a general one, a benefit question, something of that nature, how easy is that for them to reach out to Sorling?
Well, what they do is they'll come and they'll talk to either myself or Jill or Caleb or Sherry at the time and ask, what happens if at the end of the year here I'm running out of sick time and I need to be off because my father's ill. And we will turn around and give them the options of FMLA, you've got vacation time, you've got comp time that you can use, and we'll step them through all that stuff and give them all those different options. So we've tried to answer all that stuff over time. If someone chooses not to come to us and ask questions because they're saying, well, we don't have an HR professional, we have a lot of people that do a lot of things here, and we try to take care of them in the best manner that we can. But if it gets to a point that we don't have the answer, we call Greg. And Greg gets a hold of, I think his name is Fahey, at Sorling, and he gives us the answer of this is what you need to do, or this is what you need to do, or if he needs to reach out, and somebody reach out and talk to that person.
Do we know how many times we've reached out to Sterling?
It's not that much. It's occasionally we'll have a grievance or somebody with a discipline problem. And then we use them for union negotiations. The rest of the time that we deal with Sorling might deal with FOIA requests, things that go on in the police department and items like that. There's not a whole lot over on our side.
I was going to ask that too. What is the frequency of actual contact?
And you could go back and probably, because I've asked Greg over the years to split their bills up to show, how much are you doing for police, how much are you doing for FOIA work, how much are you doing this. So he could probably give us an idea of how many times they've done per se.
The other thing I was wondering is I perceive our village office as relatively small, on the smaller end of overall business. Working at the state, we had an HR department because there were 3,000 people who worked there.
If we had another person, and that was an HR person, we would want that person to be able to deal with the time clock system, be able to work and do payroll, be able to do probably 3 or 4 other items that we would put together that probably could fall under that HR person.
I can give you a longer list too of items that I've assessed a need for. And if you want, I could read through some of them, because I think while technically some of these may be being addressed in a way, I think that, in my opinion, they're significantly lacking. I don't know if you want me to run into them.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, but the other question is, do you go through training to know every year what is expected of us as an employer?
What was the last?
As an employer? Because I know that HR rules change pretty much by the day. So I didn't know, what kind of guidance do you get on the changing of the HR rules?
I use the personnel manual as my guide. If it says this is what you're supposed to do in the personnel manual, that's what we do.
That's one of the aspects where Jim Fahey from Sorling does it. If there's changes into either it's and I'll say OSHA, which is a topic of conversation right here. Yeah. So if there's changes on a federal level or on a state level that impact what our employment policies need to be, that's where Fahey provides that update and says, this is what needs to be changed in your personnel manual so that it's in line with this. You need to add this type of language, or this policy on a federal level has changed, or on the state level has changed in this. So that's kind of the guidance that we get out of what we, air quote, as our HR consultant with the employment law expert that's in Sorling that's been used for the last.
I think that's the problem, though, is the air quotes on our HR consultant.
Right.
I don't see that I think we're asking too much of the staff we have currently to keep up with the HR rules. And I think we're putting a burden on people that maybe that's not their specialty. I mean, that's what I think. Because what I think of it is a 911 number that if somebody walks in the office and asks a question, that Pat has someone that he can call on a moment's notice and go, hey, what do I do with that?
It's really a CYA for Pat. I think it's expecting, to what Trustee Ferguson's saying, I think it's putting too much pressure on you. I know you have Sorling to call when you need to, but you have too much other stuff to deal with to expect, when you're running a village that's growing, that with the census, we're about 15,000 people. We're not the 5,000 population town that once was. And when you have that growing, and we've been going through the comprehensive plan, we had the matrix and all of that, that's putting a lot of pressure on you, and there's a lot of liability that's on you. And that's really not fair to you, as I think we look at everything going on. So from a protection of the village administration, it's good when you have a professional staff to have an SHRM certified HR professional, or there's another, I can't remember off the top of my head, HR, there's two, of someone who's there for those issues that come up that you can go to and rely on, that's not on you. You're managing a whole village and everything going on there, not that. That's someone on a day-to-day. And I appreciate Trustee Detmers because he has done a lot of thorough research on the need here and beyond just those general issues.
Yeah, further to your comments, I think we're just asking too much of you with the ever-changing market of HR to keep up with it and, maybe offer you a safety person blanket to go to. I mean, I don't envision a full-time person. I would really like to, if we were going to pursue this, I'd like to go toward a consultant of some type where they come in and do an audit and they're there for 1-800 numbers, if you have questions, or to come in and do the training that we need on some of the things.
Yeah, there was an audit conducted, as far as I understand, around 2011, and in that audit, they found a lot of things that needed to be updated and processes, protocols that need to be addressed, and I think many of them were, from what I understand, and then the HR position was dissolved, and I can give you a list of things that went with that. We're no longer evaluations. These evaluations were being done annually by HR, but then that position was dissolved. Job descriptions were being updated annually, and then the position was dissolved. There's several things. We talk about the engagement surveys that we talked about. The board asked that those be done, but I've yet to hear an update on where we are with the next iteration of that. Again, you guys can stop me if you want, but I have a significant list of things that we need to address for our employees because I think they're important and they deserve it. So what can I do to ensure this occurs?
With, revenue, the village bringing in over $10 million a year, I don't know of a $10 million company that doesn't have an HR of some form or fashion.
I just
with 80 employees, or whatever it may be. 50 something.
So I guess I will reach out to Greg and see what our ability is from this board. What can we do to enforce or establish this position and make sure that the items that we're concerned about are addressed?
It's pretty much laid out in that ordinance that you guys work with the mayor and come to an agreement on creating that.
I've tried that.
I've tried that. That's still the process that you have to go through, so you're going to have to.
And we can change that ordinance, right?
Huh?
We can change that ordinance.
No.
I won't be able to, and Greg, let Greg tell you that.
Yep.
So
yeah, I've tried very hard to do the right thing for our employees, and there's no doubt of the need.
But the only part that rubs me a little on the wrong is the statement that we don't have HR professional. We do. We have professional attorneys that act as our HR. They were hired by a board, and we've been happy with the work that they've done ever since then. Now, if you guys are unhappy with the work that they've done, then we either need to address that with them so that they step it up and make themselves more available to our employees to call, or you need to decide that you're not going to go with a consulting firm. You want to hire a person, but I'm asking you, can that person have other duties as assigned when we bring them on board?
Yeah.
I would say so.
If you really want to take advantage of it, I'm fine with a full-time person,
Well,
but I want somebody that's going to manage the insurance, the time clocks, the payroll, and all that stuff. It allows Jill to do more stuff with the girls across the street.
So, yeah,
help
when-
work more with Kayla and act as really as an administrative assistant.
I would think communication would be a number one, identified need of the village, both an internal and external communication in terms of beyond HR, but if that could be included, I think that would be an opportunity to address, information, that someone, because there's no one that has that kind of time that can do that, but that can coordinate, to have a communication strategy, what needs to be communicated throughout the year with all the press releases and all the opportunities and information of what's occurring in the village, the dumpster days and all that. There's a communication strategy plan that can be put together and addressed.
So let me suggest.
We could also have them address the employee ordinance compliance.
Right.
Such things as nepotism, such things as what the CFO should be paid versus what they're actually being paid. Those audits would be vastly important.
But I would
Let me say,
also-
can
would
I
also
make a
be-
suggestion here before we go far too on it? We're at a spot right now, so what happened 8 years ago, right, wrong, or indifferent? That was the vote that was taken to split those positions, and the decision was made. The day-to-day stuff as it related to making sure people got signed up for insurance, make sure the time was tracked, make sure that payroll was processed, make sure that insurance was on, all those what we would consider to be traditional employee-facing HR type tasks were allocated amongst Sherry, Jill, Pat, department heads, because we weren't ever going to stop doing the tasks, and we've never stopped doing those tasks. And nobody's missing checks, and nobody's missing vacation time, and nobody's missing punches, and those things are happening. The decision was made by the board at that time for those ancillary higher level things where you're looking at, law changes or policy manual changes or procedural changes that you need to do. They opted at that point in time to engage with Sorling, who has an employment law division, which is Jim Fahey is the one that we coordinate with at that point in time to do those.
Do we know what the vote and the discussion was at that time?
Contentious.
Well, but here's
For a lot of other reasons that don't apply to what we're talking right now. We are at a spot, given that Sherry's retired, given that Kayla's now taking the reins on a lot of things, that the things you talked about tonight are fine. And if you want to move away from having Sorling do those, let them sit in, and figure out, okay, what is, how do we have all these extras? Because we took the list of things that Dewey believed aren't being done and can tell you where they've been allocated and what the reference is into the employee procedure manuals and in our ordinances and how those are covered. Because it is important to make sure those things get done.
But I don't think we cover a lot of things well.
and one
And
example.
it's not.
And I'd
But-
really like to finish my thought, if that would be okay at this point.
Well, it's our committee of the whole. It's Dewey's committee of the whole.
If you don't want me to suggest what I think is appropriate, that we listen to our professional staff and allow them to tell you, here's what we could use, don't listen to that. That's fine. If you don't want to hear it.
We have heard it. I have heard it several times, and I've worked continuously to try to make this happen. Again, we can offer examples of either shortcomings or just complete misses. And if you want to do that now, I'm happy to. But I want this done. We've talked about it several times. We talked about it in the budget times, and it was going to happen.
I'll give you one
Here
big
we are.
example. There is an ordinance that performance reviews are supposed to occur every year. Their performance reviews did not occur for 4 or 5 years. While we had
They have the police department every year.
okay, the police department, but as we established earlier in the night, there's different rules and necessary rules, and that's occurred, and that's good. We're gonna go outside the police department. But there has not been performance reviews that have occurred when they were supposed to, based on the ordinances. And to my knowledge, that ordinance was never changed or edited and didn't get adopted into the codified ordinances. That was in there to have occurred. And it never was, I for years said that this should be occurring, and it still didn't occur. And there's a certain degree of, Drew has brought this up to where asked for this to occur, the ordinance is there for it to occur, and it was ignored. So, how to move forward is a question that everyone's going to have to think about.
Well, I'd like to hear from the workers, the employees, all 50-something of them, every single one, with yes or no, and how do they feel about this? Because that would really be the vote.
We had one engagement survey of colleagues. I think having that routinely, and I don't think it should be the board conducting it. It should be an HR certified professional who is conducting that the employees would trust, because they're a third party that can conduct a survey like that. I'm used to in organizations.
Because our survey touched on those items, but I think if we're going to push forward with this, it would be nice for that to be the only question. What do you want, an HR rep or not?
But I think that falls back to our responsibility to figure out, and we use the guidelines.
But they're
of
working
the society.
here. And so do they want this or do they not want this? Or because they've been.
Where'd you find that out, Trustee Charo? Through a survey.
I think through a survey.
Yeah, you know who would conduct a survey? An HR professional who is responsible for communicating with.
Well, right now, maybe Sorling, I don't know, could do it then.
I tell you, myself and the staff are not against hiring someone, but we need to get someone.
And I would agree, they have to have more, so like our HR person at work is a SHRM certified person, but she also has many other hats she wears, whether it be the building, anything, insurance, all of it.
That would make us more efficient here. It really would. There's no doubt.
And I'm not opposed to
As I
hiring somebody new
suggested, is
either.
Let the staff come up with what they need. You have a now new CFO and treasurer.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, we'll take some of the job descriptions that each of us deal with now that handle some of those different things, and we'll put it together and submit it to you as a group, and you guys can sit down and discuss it and say, these are some of the tasks that we would like to see this position do. And if you guys deem that that is either too much or not enough, but it could be a good starting point of these are the tasks that we know that we do here on a daily basis that we think someone that could be an HR person be able to take care of those as well. Like I said, it would be huge to have another person that could do payroll. Jill has never, I don't think, in the 26 years that she's ever worked here, taken 2 weeks in a row vacation because she can't be off because she's got to be here to do payroll. The insurance just keeps growing and growing and growing, and all the different things on it. Like you said, the sexual harassment surveys and all that kind of stuff, and the training that we have to go through and do every single year. All of the training that all the different departments do. She schedules a lot of that stuff. That stuff could all fall on this person.
That would be an HR function.
So.
I'm not opposed to it, but I like to, Trustee Detmers, I like to hear are these complaints from employees that are not being funneled back to the staff, or I'm kind of.
No, I mean, they are being funneled back to the staff. I'm not sure why some of these things have been fallen out of folks' memories, but I think we had a situation where an employee was told several things about a car COVID policy and then acted accordingly, and then they came back. And the answer then that they received at that point was the exact opposite of what they were told when they were out. And we all know how far that went, right? But if there were a professional HR person that said, hey, employees, happy Friday. Don't forget there's donuts in the break room. Secondly, we have a new COVID policy, and here it is. And unfortunately, or fortunately, or whatever, but we need you to sign the document that says you received it and you understand it. And if you have any questions, you talk to Paul, talk to Phil, you talk to Stacy, Susie. And that didn't happen. Instead, it was said that the COVID policy was tacked on to the bulletin board. And hopefully everybody would have seen that or known to look there. But then there are other people that are reporting it never was there. So it's that type of, it's not that the employee even necessarily, or all employees even understood it, but it's a significant risk to the village. It was and is a significant risk to the village, and I think as trustees, that's our responsibility to try to mitigate. That's one example. The second example is, how does the village go about hiring outside of the police? Thank you for that education. How does it go about hiring new staff? Well, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble if you don't hire a particular person based on a particular reason, or their understanding or their assumption, or those types of things. That, from what I understand, we just let the lead worker interview and choose and hire on their own. Like, I'm not entirely sure that that's the process, but I believe it to be. And any HR professional that I've ever spoken to that I said, hey, this is how it goes down, they're like, whoa. You are dodging some bullets there, because if you don't hire Dewey because he's tall or old or whatever, it can get you in a lot of trouble. And so I think we need a professional that focuses on that. And in addition to that, I think corporate culture is very important. I think that from what I hear from many of the employees I've talked to, they show up, they do their work, and they leave. They don't like it, they don't appreciate it, they don't love it, they don't want to be here all the time. And that's always going to happen. I'm not suggesting that an HR professional is going to fix that in one day, but they can surely make strides to make that occur, make people like their jobs. So anyway, I have a longer list too of things that I would like to do as if we ran the village, recognize our employees and celebrate their births and their marriages, and help them with training opportunities to help them be a more fulfilled person. If I was working in the utility office, maybe I would want to learn how to use an Access database. So I think the village should offer opportunities for those people to educate themselves, be more efficient workers, be more fulfilled as a worker and a happier person. But I'm just one trustee.
I agree.
No, it's well thought out.
Yep.
So from what I understand, it sounds like, Pat, you're going to lead the way in working with your team to understand what HR functions you participate in today that could potentially go to a new employee, and you'll present that back to the committee of the whole.
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Any other questions or comments on the HR professional? The scheduled meetings, the next committee of the whole meeting is 6:15 on December 14th. Sorry.
I just went through the hiring process, and I'm not being mean to you, but what we did was pretty extensive. So I have score sheets, we had second interviews, and Pat made the decision with the lead worker and the general foreman on the second interview. So it was very extensive. I still have the score sheets. Those are all given to us. So I mean, just like him, I do my thing, my own thing, and I thought it was a pretty good job. I have all that if you'd like to see it.
No, but do your other colleagues do the exact same process?
I don't know. I do my own. I go to Pat. I ask him how I want to go about it.
That's the way we handle it when we hire someone in the office. The street department just recently hired somebody, followed the exact same pattern.
So they had interviews with multiple staff in the room, and they all scored them and rated them, and those scores are available for trustees to reference, to look at?
Why not? Yes.
I would imagine Shane has his too.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, sounds like maybe that's not a function we need to do then, evidently. So it probably won't show up in your report.
Maybe the person that's feeding you information is feeding you a line of bullshit.
Yeah, or maybe, I should probably stop.
Yeah.
Yep, probably a good idea, Dewey. All righty. As I mentioned, scheduled meetings committee of the whole, 6:15, December 14th. As I don't believe there's any need for closed session. May I please have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by trustee Charles. Any second? By trustee Scherschel. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
Ay, caramba.
What? I'm starving.